Have you ever wondered what would happen if the new gen females fought the old gen ones? Do the new generation females stand any chance against our old gen queens? Well, to answer that, I picked the 6 strongest females from the old side and 7 from the new gen, and split them into 5 stages. And just like we always do, I'll start by revealing the first stage for both generations, and as the video goes on, I'll slowly keep adding more and more characters, until we finally reach the end, where both generations will fight with their full strength. So for starters, we have Maki from the new gen side and Yoruichi from the old. Now Maki is a physical anomaly. She completely dismantled the Zenin clan and hits at a solid multi-city block level. However, Yoruichi casually shattered Espada level threats like Yami, and if she activates her Shunko in her fight, her attack power comfortably scales to mountain or even island level. But that's not all. When it comes to speed, this is where the debate completely shuts down. Maki's absolute peak scaling comes from dodging and defeating Naoya, who was moving at Mach 3 at most. Yoruichi, on the other hand, is literally known as the Flash Goddess. She effortlessly outpaced Byakuya's Senbon Sakura, and in her Shunko form, she operates at massively hypersonic plus to sub-relativistic speeds. To Yoruichi, Maki would look like she's moving in slow motion. Now, if we consider Maki's split soul katana, yes, it could definitely work against Yoruichi. Since it strikes directly at the soul, it could critically damage her. But the real issue is landing that hit. With the massive speed gap between them, Maki would never be able to land a direct strike on Yoruichi in the first place. So yeah, for this one, old gen takes the win. But hey, you don't just have to take my word for it. Why don't we see how Maki feels about taking this? Maki, do you really think Yoruichi outspeeds you that badly?
Please. I dismantled the entire Zenin clan and kept up with Mach 3 speeds. If I get one clean hit with my blade, it's over for her. Just watch.
Okay, she is not backing down. Let's see if the Flash Goddess agrees. Yoruichi, Maki thinks she only needs one hit. Any thoughts?
One hit? Please. If I actually released my spiritual pressure, she wouldn't even be able to stand, let alone swing that sword. I wouldn't even need to use my full power for a rookie like her.
And yet, talking directly with Maki and Yoruichi is just the beginning, because with this new free app called Polybuzz, you can talk with your favorite anime characters all the time and debate these matchups with them as if they were your best friends. Whether it's Goku, Asta, Jinwoo, Luffy, or even your favorite waifus like Nami, Tsunade, Zoro, and many more. Polybuzz makes this a reality. And what can you talk about with them? Anything. And I mean anything. It's free, enjoyable, and the best part, as an anime fan, you will never get bored of it, as the selection of anime characters they have is honestly endless. Use code ANNIE66 to get access to 3 days of premium membership completely free of charge. Use my link in the description down below to download Polybuzz AI and start chatting with your favorite anime characters today. Believe me, you will not regret it. But now, let's get back to our video. Now with that in place, let's add Mitsuri to the new gen side. For this, even after adding Mitsuri, our new gen team is still leagues behind Yoruichi. You see, Mitsuri definitely has incredible combat speed. She was able to react to Zohakuten's lightning and sound-based attacks. On top of that, her abnormally dense muscle composition gives her insane physical strength and superhuman durability. But even with all that, the new gen speed still isn't anywhere close to Yoruichi's. And even if we remove Yoruichi's speed advantage entirely and nerf her in that department, her destructive power alone is just too overwhelming. She could just take both of them down with a single punch. After all, Maki and Mitsuri are, at best, city block level fighters. So once again, the old gen takes the win. Well, now things are about to heat up, because we're adding Mereoleona to the new gen side next. Okay, so here's how this plays out. Yoruichi rushes forward, planning to take down Mitsuri and Maki first. But at that exact moment, Mereoleona steps in and intercepts her. Remember, Mereoleona effortlessly outsped Ria's literal light magic, meaning she can easily keep pace with Yoruichi's movements. Yoruichi then immediately activates her lightning-infused Shunko and goes in for a strike. But in that very instant, Mereoleona transforms into her Hellfire Incarnate form, turning her body into pure, untouchable mana and flame, completely neutralizing Yoruichi's hand-to-hand brawling style. Then Mereoleona activates her Mana Zone, unleashing omnidirectional fire blasts that that force Yoruichi onto the defensive. Yoruichi then attempts to escape using Flash Step to get out of the mana zone, but right at that moment, Mitsuri appears and unleashes multiple rapid strikes, severely restricting Yoruichi's escape angles. And just as Yoruichi gets pinned down, Maki slips in and lands a clean hit with her split soul katana, striking directly at her soul and ending the fight on the spot, which means this time the new gen takes the win. But we're not done yet, because now it's time for stage 2, and this time we're adding Erza Scarlet to the old gen side. And before we continue, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button for more interesting content like this in the future. Alright, this time Mereoleona takes on Yoruichi again, just like in stage 1, while Maki and Mitsuri go up against Erza. First, let's see how Erza's battle plays out. And surprisingly, Erza has a counter for almost everything in Maki and Mitsuri's arsenal. You see, to deal with Mitsuri's speed-based attacks, Erza can simply equip her flight armor, dramatically boosting her mobility and reaction speed. As for Maki's split soul katana, Erza can switch to her Nakagami armor, which allows her to manipulate space itself. She can literally cut through the space between her and Maki, preventing the blade from ever making contact. And when it comes to raw strength, Erza once shattered a gigantic meteor while most of her bones were broken. That level of destructive power is far beyond anything we've seen in Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen. On top of that, in her Heaven's Wheel armor, she can summon 200 swords at once, completely overwhelming Maki and Mitsuri with a relentless barrage before they even get close enough to land a fatal strike, meaning Maki and Mitsuri don't even stand a chance here. With them taken care of, Erza moves in to assist Yoruichi, who has been fighting Mereoleona this whole time. So now the real question is, can Mereoleona handle Yoruichi and Erza at the same time? You see, the moment Erza joins the battlefield, Mereoleona instantly transforms into her Hellfire incarnate form and activates Mana Zone, drastically raising the temperature of the entire area. In response, Erza equips her Flame Empress armor, granting her 50% fire resistance and flame manipulation, while Yoruichi shifts into her Raiju Senki form. And remember, in Hellfire Incarnate, Mereoleona's temperature and mana output keep increasing exponentially as the fight drags on. This means Yoruichi and Erza need to end this as quickly as possible. At first, both of them attack simultaneously, but Mereoleona, being the absolute beast she is, counters with massive Calidus Brachium blasts, attempting to vaporize them both. Still, Yoruichi and Erza aren't pushovers either. They manage to withstand the attack. Yoruichi then focuses all her spiritual pressure into a point-blank Shunko blast, temporarily shocking and stunning Mereoleona. And in that split second, Erza re-equips into her Nakagami armor. Since the Nakagami halberd can slice through the very laws of magic and space, and Hellfire Incarnate is essentially pure mana, Erza dashes forward and cuts straight through Mereoleona's core, bypassing her durability and ending the fight on the spot, which means in this round, the old gen takes the win. Next, let's add Frieren to the new gen side. Okay, so this time, Erza won't be fighting Maki and Mitsuri. Instead, she gets her own opponent, Frieren. That means Maki and Mitsuri are free to support Mereoleona, who's once again facing Yoruichi. Now, Frieren is a tactical genius with over 1,000 years of experience, but even with that, she still falls short of Erza in terms of raw destructive power. In terms of speed, Frieren has excellent reaction time for a mage and can keep up with high-tier demons, but her overall movement speed is still relatively grounded compared to Erza's high-speed blitz capabilities. On top of that, Frieren's magic relies heavily on visualization. If she can't clearly imagine cutting through something, she can't do it. And even if she somehow analyzes one of Erza's armors and figures out its structure, it still wouldn't matter much, because Erza has over 100 different armors, making it extremely difficult for Frieren to fully grasp her arsenal. And while Frieren's signature Zoltrak is highly efficient and capable of piercing standard magical defenses, Erza's adamantine armor once withstood a blast from the Jupiter Cannon, a city-flattening weapon, which far exceeds the output of a normal Zoltrak beam. So realistically, the only thing Frieren can do here is stall for time. Meanwhile, Yoruichi versus Mereoleona, Maki, and Mitsuri plays out almost exactly like stage 1. Mereoleona activates Mana Zone and forces Yoruichi onto the defensive. Mitsuri jumps in to restrict her escape angles, and in that exact moment, Maki slips through and lands a clean strike with her split soul katana. Now, Mereoleona Mereoleona, Maki, and Mitsuri are free to assist Frieren, who's struggling against Erza. So, can Erza take on all 4 of them at once? Well, not likely. You see, Frieren no longer needs to attack directly. She can simply hang back, analyze Erza's re-equip magic, and cast binding spells to disrupt her movements while the others engage her head-on. Seeing this, Erza switches to her Nakagami armor. But this time, Frieren quickly realizes that the armor consumes a colossal amount of magical power to maintain, and she immediately informs her team. Meanwhile, Mereoleona pushes her Hellfire Incarnate form to its absolute limit, forcing Erza to constantly swing the Nakagami halberd just to erase the incoming flames. This rapidly drains Erza's magical reserves, and remember, at its peak, Mereoleona's flames can burn through magic itself, meaning Erza is left with no real option but to stay on the defensive. Right then, Mitsuri and Maki step in as distractions, creating the perfect opening, and with that opportunity, Mereoleona unleashes Calidus Brachium Purgatory Abyss, pummeling Erza with a relentless stream of punches from every direction, which means this time, the new gen takes the win. But we are not done yet, because it's time for Stage 3, where we add Tsunade to the old gen side. For this round, the matchups remain mostly the same, but with one key difference. This time, Mitsuri and Maki are fighting Tsunade, so they won't be able to assist Mereoleona against Yoruichi. Now, when it comes to brute strength, Tsunade's physical power is legendary. She shattered Madara's Susanoo ribcage with a single punch. While Maki and Mitsuri are undeniably strong, Tsunade's feats against mountain-level constructs place her in an entirely higher tier of destructive capability. Speed-wise, Maki and Mitsuri are impressive, but Naruto high tiers consistently operate at speeds that blitz standard JJK and Demon Slayer characters. Tsunade was fast enough to tag Madara Uchiha and keep up with the other Kage in reaction time. Realistically, Tsunade wouldn't even give them much room to react. A few clean punches would likely end the fight. And let's not forget her body pathway derangement technique, which can scramble an opponent's nervous system and leave them unable to control their own limbs properly. So yes, Tsunade takes this one. With that fight over, Tsunade moves on to assist Yoruichi against Mereoleona. Since Mereoleona is still locked in battle, there's no one left to help Frieren this time. And just like that, Frieren eventually falls to Erza. Now it becomes a 3v1. Erza, Yoruichi, and Tsunade versus Mereoleona. And honestly, we've already seen how this plays out back in Stage 2, when it was just Erza and Yoruichi. Adding Tsunade only makes it more decisive, which means this round clearly goes to the old gen. But what if we add Star and Stripe to the new gen side? Now, she initially teams up with Maki and Mitsuri to fight Tsunade. But before we get into that, let me quickly explain how her powers actually work. You see, her quirk, New Order, allows her to set 2 rules on anything she touches. She can turn the air into a vacuum, make lasers solid, or even command a heart to stop. However, there are conditions. First, she must make direct contact with the target, and if it's a living person, she needs to know their real name. Second, she can only have 2 rules active at a time, and technically, she almost always keeps 1 rule on herself to grant superhuman strength and durability, leaving her with only 1 flexible slot. Now let's get back to the battle. Here, Tsunade initially takes out Maki and Mitsuri first, since they could become a nuisance later, leaving Star and Stripe in a one-on-one duel. Now honestly, Star and Stripe doesn't even need to engage in close combat. She could simply place a rule on the surrounding air, removing the oxygen around Tsunade and making her suffocate. But Tsunade actually has a counter for it, and that is Creation Rebirth, which doesn't just heal surface wounds. It forces her cells to continuously divide and function regardless of the damage. That means even if her lungs begin to collapse or her brain cells start dying due to lack of oxygen, her jutsu would instantly repair the cellular damage as long as her chakra reserves last. And in that brief window, Tsunade only needs to close the distance and use body pathway derangement. Once Star and Stripe's nervous system is scrambled, her brain can't properly command her mouth to speak or her hands to move, meaning she can't activate new order. She essentially becomes a statue that Tsunade can eventually dismantle. So yeah, Tsunade takes this round, and from there, the rest of the battle plays out almost exactly like the previous scenario. So let's just move on and add Makima to the new gen side. And to be honest, adding her completely changes the outcome of this battle. This time, Makima handles Tsunade, whereas Star and Stripe assists Frieren against Erza, and Maki and Mitsuri once again support Mereoleona against Yoruichi. Now here's the biggest problem for Tsunade. Makima has a contract with the Prime Minister of Japan that transfers any fatal attack inflicted on her into an appropriate illness or accident, affecting a random Japanese citizen instead. That means Tsunade would have to kill her roughly 126 million times to truly put her down, and realistically, Tsunade's chakra reserves simply wouldn't last that long. But even if we ignore the contract, Makima still holds the advantage. Her ability allows her to control anyone she perceives as inferior. Tsunade, despite her immense willpower, doesn't possess god-tier resistance to conceptual control. Makima's domination isn't just mental, it's biological and absolute in nature. If Makima views Tsunade as just another human leader beneath her, the fight could end instantly, with Tsunade becoming her puppet, which means Tsunade could technically end up fighting on the new gen side, though that isn't even necessary, because Mereoleona, Mitsuri, and Maki will handle Yoruichi just like before. After that, they regroup and join Frieren's team. So now, Erza is forced into a battle against Frieren, Star and Stripe, Maki, Mitsuri, Makima, Mereoleona, and possibly even Tsunade. And honestly, there's no way Erza wins a fight like that, which means this time, the new gen takes the victory. But let's take it even further and move into stage 4, where we add Pitou and Big Mom to the old gen side next. Alright, so in this stage, Pitou joins Erza against Star and Stripe and Frieren, while Big Mom teams up with Tsunade, and the rest of the matchups stay the same. Now firstly, Pitou immediately charges at Star and Stripe, while Erza engages Frieren. And honestly, this isn't even much of a fight for Star and Stripe. You see, she could simply create a vacuum around Pitou, causing unbearable internal pressure, and then follow it up with a fist bump to the earth to completely crush her. And just like that, it becomes Erza versus Frieren and Star and Stripe again. On the other side, Big Mom decides to take Makima head on, so Tsunade moves on to assist Erza instead. So now let's see how Big Mom's fight would play out. Unlike Tsunade, Makima can't simply control Big Mom. That's because Big Mom's Conqueror's Haki would likely act as a natural barrier against Makima's spiritual influence. On top of that, Big Mom can directly manipulate souls using her Soul Fruit. She could rip Makima's soul out entirely, turning her into an empty husk. Since Makima's contract specifically redirects damage and attacks, a non-damaging soul extraction would bypass the contract completely. With Makima out of the picture, Big Mom moves to assist Yoruichi, who's fighting Maki, Mitsuri, and Mereoleona. The moment she arrives, she unleashes her Conqueror's Haki, briefly paralyzing Maki and Mitsuri. In that instant, she codes Napoleon in advanced Haki and takes both of them out in a single decisive strike. Now Mereoleona has to face Big Mom and Yoruichi at the same time. Once again, Mereoleona transforms into her Hellfire incarnate form, but this time Big Mom uses Prometheus to absorb and consume the surrounding flames, potentially growing even stronger from the overwhelming heat and mana. That creates the perfect opening for Yoruichi to launch relentless high-speed strikes. And just as Mereoleona shifts her focus toward Yoruichi, Big Mom steps in with advanced armament Haki. Since Mereoleona's mana form is essentially a dense energy construct, Big Mom's Rio allows her to bypass the intangible nature of the flames and strike the spiritual essence directly, forcing it to disperse. And just like that, Mereoleona goes down. From there, Big Mom and Yoruichi regroup with Erza and Tsunade against Frieren and Star and Stripe. And honestly, there's simply no way the two of them can take down that lineup of monsters, which means this time, the old gen takes the win. Alright, finally it's time for Stage 5, where we add the final characters to both sides. Android 18 to the old gen team, and Tatsumaki to the new gen team. Now, since the matchups remain the same as in the previous scenario, it all comes down to this fight between Android 18 and Tatsumaki. This battle will decide whether the new gen takes the crown or the old gen does. You see, when it comes to Tatsumaki, her greatest feat is twisting the Monster Association base and stopping continental scale attacks from Saikorochi. And since she even fought Saitama for a short time, we can safely say she's at least a low planetary level threat. But when you compare her to Android 18, the gap in power is simply just too massive. Even during her debut in the Android saga, 18 was far superior to First Form Frieza, who casually destroyed planet Vegeta, a planet with 10 times Earth's gravity. By the Tournament of Power, she had scaled even higher, being able to deflect attacks from Super Saiyan Blue tier fighters. At that point, she's effectively a multi-planetary to star level threat. Not only that, but in One Punch Man, it's stated that psychic powers are less effective against individuals with extraordinary willpower or immense life force. Given Android 18's overwhelming ki and iron will, she would likely resist being directly crushed or manipulated by Tatsumaki's telekinesis, similar to how Saitama did. So no matter what Tatsumaki throws at her, Android 18 takes the win here. And since the rest of the matchups remain the same as before, adding 18 on top of that lineup is basically a guaranteed victory for the old gen. So with that said, our old gen queens comfortably take the crown. Click on this video next, where we made What If Old Gen Villains Fought the New Gen's Strongest Heroes. Go on, check it out.